I wanted to talk to you though really quick because I think a couple things happen, man. Like number one, we're both Marines, and I know that first things first, like I think that there is just a level of pride that is attached to the title Marine, that personally, and this is nothing against any other branch, but I think it is unique. It does seem to stand out. You've had a little bit of backlash also about like whether or not like favoring Marine Corps over other things. So I wanted to talk about like the pride of being a Marine, that our experience, but also I wanted to understand like you're not about like just talking about Marines or just talking about one branch.
Okay. Yeah. So for those of you that are, probably wondering like where the fuck this come from, there was an instance where we were talking about the Korean War. I made a couple posts about the Chosin Reservoir, and it was strictly based on the Marine experiences. And I had one Army guy who happens to be a Ranger, and he was just saying like, "Hey man, like why don't you ever mention the Army?" And it turned into this massive fucking thread. So I just want to point out something.
And to that motherfucker, if he happens across this, I know he's on Instagram. We literally had a fucking Army Ranger as our first guest on the goddamn podcast.
True, yeah.
So just a heads up.
So they kind of created this like, ZF is about bias towards Marines. Okay, so are we Marines? Yes. Are we a Marine veteran-owned company? Absolutely. But
are Marines better? Absolutely.
But on a serious note, okay, I know just within the military, there's always that, that fighting spirit that, man, what's the word, man? It's kind of like,
yeah, it's like
I rag on you, you know what I mean? And
right. No, absolutely.
But we're all part of the same
there's
team.
That competitive kind of like, yeah.
So, first off, I respect anybody who wears a uniform, who signs up and does their part. Okay. So you're always going to have my utmost respect for that. There's always that, again, that competition. That's just the way it is. Some people kind of take that shit to heart. Now, we as ZF, okay, so if we want to talk about statistics, the majority of the people that I post about is actually Army guys. So that's one thing that nobody complains about that part. I try to bring out I try to bring to light the most badass motherfuckers. I don't care where they come from. I even did a couple posts on dudes that were on the enemy side, honestly, because they were just that fucking badass. Like I had one story comes to mind was there was a German officer. I can't remember his name right now. Long story short, he went out in a minefield to save an American that got left behind by his unit. And in fact, he died in the process. And after the war, he's the only German who had a, what's it called? A fucking tombstone or a burial, whatever, made by Americans for the enemy. Like, you know what I mean? So there was a mutual respect. So, I do those things. I've done women. I've done people from other countries, Australia, India, fucking.
Whoa. Coast Guard?
They're actually believe it or not, like I need to do some guys about the Coast Guard. I mean, they're actually Coast Guard guys who actually got the Medal of Honor, believe it or not. But point that I'm trying to make, man, is that I try to encompass everything. So this whole thing about Marines, Army, and all that shit, I don't bite into that. You know what I mean? To me, that conversation could have went a whole different fucking way. It just became some fucking ego bullshit. That's essentially what happened.
Yeah, and here's the thing is like I think that we should clarify like what he was saying before about like that competitive nature. I understand why people get into these kind of like why you feel a certain way about like your branch or whatever, because, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Like it's natural to have that pride. Okay. Like, so because of that pride though, sometimes that can be channeled the wrong way and it turns into, you getting butthurt because somebody's not talking about you enough or your branch or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, like, be prideful for your team or your people. That's great. Right. But like, don't assume that just because you're not like, and at least do your fucking homework first. That's my big thing. It's like look at the other shit. Don't look at one fucking post or two posts.
And here's the other thing too. I mean, that conversation dragged out because essentially the point that the guy was trying to make was that everybody thinks that the Army during Korea was fucking cowards and it ran out and all that shit. So that's essentially when he would, it turned out into, it was just a very immature way of bringing the subject up where you could have just said that in the first place. Now, what I want to clarify is this. First off, this is the whole thing with Chosen. Believe it or not, yes, it was a main Marine effort. Okay, I don't give a fuck who you're talking about. It is a main Marine effort. Now, it's not to discredit that it wasn't Army units out there that suffered just as much. There's also British units that were out there and suffered just as much. But in history, it is mainly regarded as a Marine battle. Okay, like. Same thing with Fallujah and shit. Believe it or not, it is regarded mainly as a Marine battle. Yes, there are Army units involved, and they crushed it just as much as anybody else. But like, Quezon was mainly a Marine battle, and I'm sure there were Army guys out there. But there are also plenty of fucking battles where the Army did their shit. Normandy, there were actually some Marines that actually landed in Normandy. But you know what? It's a main Army battle. So this whole thing about, we're not here to like steal credit or anything like that. But in regards to Korea, when the whole fucking thing happened with Chosen, yes, there was an Army unit out there that took a brunt of the force, RCT 31, that went out there and protected one of the flanks so the Marines could pull out. But also the 8th Army was actually the first motherfuckers that got to the 38th parallel line. Now, I'm not saying, again, I wasn't there, so I cannot speak for it. I think that anybody who's fought through any kind of war is brave and did their part and did their shit. So this whole thing about I want to be included, or this sort of thing, hey, these units are cowards, like that shit needs to stop because there's none of that shit, first off. You know what I mean? So I just want to make that super clear. We're not biased. We're not here to, but they come out and get butthurt over some bullshit where you could, being a fucking grown up and just say, hey, man, like, you should also add this, and this is I would like, great, awesome. Instead of making this whole fucking thing and get fucking slammed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just come correct, man. We're all grown ups, man. We're talking about serious shit. Bottom fucking line.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference too in between like kind of fuck games and like being playful with one another. Like there's a difference in like razzing and roasting and like somebody legitimately like is fucking offended. And guys, and just so everybody knows, I'm gonna tell you from personal experience. Like regardless of what branch or whatever, I work with ZF every day, and I have seen this company and G do so much, going above and beyond investments, both financially, physically, emotionally, like do things to pay homage to the entire, history of the military and to, just to me, like have a little fucking respect with the fact that like this motherfucker does literally like multiple posts a day and tells stories and stuff across the fucking internet that like brings people awareness, and we go and interview veterans. I mean, it's just, again, I'm not trying to like suck our own dick. I'm just saying like, you know.
I mean, the bottom line is just like, you got something to add, fucking add on to it. You know what I mean? Just come correct when you do it. That's all I'm saying, man. Like if somebody has something to say, because I fuck up, I say the wrong things, or I bring the wrong, just fucking say, be like, hey, dude.
I fucked up on the Puller story like 3 times, but y'all didn't see it because I edited it out.
Yeah, and he's a Marine. So that's what I'm saying. We're all...
Reading's not our thing. And that's the thing. He fucking writes these stories, so obviously his biggest audience isn't Marines.
Right, yeah. So
it would be colored pictures and shit, right? Like,
yeah.
Or like
he's got a point.
Chicks in bikini. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got a point, man. So